Peace. What's good? How y'all doing? Today is Monday, July 31st, 2023. I pray that this message reaches you all in the best of health, spirit, and mind. I am well. I am getting ready to do yoga in just a few minutes, and I wanted to, well, not in a few minutes when I finish this video, and I wanted to sit down and have a conversation with you guys without the live factor, without the it's funny when I do these videos, especially when I post content online, especially when it's something important that I want to talk about. I always think about all of the things that I didn't say, or the things I should have said, or the things that I wanted to say. And so my mind goes into overdrive. My mind doesn't live in overdrive. I don't, normally I don't, it's not a thing. But because of the seriousness of the times that we're living in, and because of the seriousness of the topic of conversation that I discussed yesterday, I had things that I wanted to address that I forgot, whatever. So I wanted to do a follow-up conversation to what we talked about yesterday. And I'm also very mindful when I do videos and I'm, fiery and passionate, leaning more into the masculine attributes of my personality. Not to be confused with, don't take that and go into some, oh, she's a feminist, she hates men. Like, I shouldn't even have to say that. I feel like I shouldn't have to say that on my audience, but it needs to be said anyway, because there is a gross misunderstanding of what the masculine and feminine attributes are about. It's not about gender. It's about aspects of our personality and really reflections of the divine consciousness, so to speak. Light versus dark, masculine versus feminine, high versus low, upper versus lower, et cetera, the duality, so to speak. And so sometimes I think because people have a certain perspective, because, if I do one video in 6 months and then I'm fired up, it gives people the idea that I'm walking around in real life fired up all the time. Like, no, 99.9% of the time, I'm quiet, I am observing, I'm studying, I'm in nature. I have a very peaceful, drama-free life. And that's probably why sometimes when I do these type of videos that I'm able to express that level of passion and fire, because it's sort of percolating underneath the surface. And then again, I feel like God put me here to represent God. So I am conscientious of the war against God. And we don't have to, I always have to say this because, my background is in the Black community. And so anytime you say God, there's a segment of people who will say, oh, God means dog backwards. We shouldn't be using that word, et cetera, et cetera. But there really is only one word that can pinpoint people in a certain direction. I'm comfortable with all of the titles because to me, they all are about me. Not me individually, but I say God having a human experience called ZaZaAli. So it's the divine essence that's speaking to and speaking through me, the microcosm versus the macrocosm, or I shouldn't even say versus, the microcosm and the macrocosm, the higher self and the lower self, the inner being, which is how God expresses and expands through us and in consciousness and in evolution, et cetera, et cetera. So I always feel like I shouldn't have to say that, but I also know that that is a major reason why there is no cohesion and no forward momentum and forward progress in the Black melanated African, whatever you want to call it, community, because we get snagged on the simple things. We get snagged on religion. We get snagged on a lot of things that really are only meant to be, links in the chain, so to speak. Small lessons on the path to greatness. Africa is a step on the journey. Africa is not the final destination. Islam is a step on the journey. Islam is not the final direction or the final destination. Christianity in its proper sense, the Bible, the Quran, et cetera, are steps in the direction of the ultimate goal, which is enlightenment, which is happiness, which is peace of mind, which is love, which is I am that I am. And so I know a lot of times I can feel people's, I've heard all of the responses so many times that I can feel, the Muslims or the Christians or the Jesus, the Jesus pieces, so to speak, get snagged on language. But what we can't deny is that all of the religions in a collective, as far as the collective consciousness, all of the spiritual and the metaphysics communities in the bigger scheme of things have absolutely failed humanity. That's not even up for debate. How do we know? Because we have 8 billion people on our planet. I believe there are 2 billion Christians. There are 2 billion Muslims, give or take, whatever those numbers are, and probably another couple of billion that ascribe to some, spiritual sentiment, whether it's Hinduism, whether it's Buddhism, whether it's the Tao, different spiritual practices and yoga, et cetera. So that, comprises of 8 billion, and then you throw atheism in there, and then you throw, confusion or just, personal preferences. And then we look at the fact that 6+ billion people, if the statistics that they're giving us are correct, have absolutely fall victim to a very simple, not even well put together strategic agenda by Satan. And when I say Satan, I'm not talking about a man. I'm not talking about he, even though we refer as Satan to he, we also refer to Satan as he. We also refer to God as he. That's the normal sort of way that we assess it. And then you start getting into some of the more deeper African or indigenous or original sentiments of spirituality. And then we go back to the divine feminine. We go back to the Black Madonna. We go back to Mama Earth. We go back to the womb of space, right? So we're talking about metaphysics here. And it's frustrating because you want to have a conversation that's more geared towards in enveloping or inspiring people's personal power, because to me, that's the end all be all. What's the point of dedicating yourself to a religion your whole entire lifetime and you never have peace? What's the point of reading and studying and researching and analyzing scriptures if you can't even sit with yourself and have peace of mind and meditate for 20 minutes without the world infiltrating the idea of peace of mind? So the scriptures are meant to be resources. The scriptures are meant to be tools and guides. I think Khalid Muhammad, for me, was the most clear and concise in terms of what that actually means. The prophets were meant to be studied and embodied. You are either aspiring to Christ consciousness, or you may be on the frequency of Judah. Backstabbing, betraying yourself, let alone the people in your life. So my subject today, the chosen ones choose themselves. This is critical because this is a very heavy cross to carry. Sometimes I sit down, I'm going to read a couple of comments that I saw on the video. I went back and read some of the chat. I haven't read it all, but I kept the page open. Well, I don't need to keep the page open. It's still open, but I can close it. I've just thought about that. I can go back and read the chat, but I did scroll through some of the comments and I wanted to address some of them as well as some of the comments that I've received since. But this is a very heavy cross to carry. And when I look back in my life in retrospect, I've actually been carrying this cross since I was a child. Growing up in Oakland in a family that was very strategically impacted by crack cocaine, by drugs, by the reality of living in the inner city in America, being Black, living in the inner city in America was, I've been carrying this cross for a long time before I even recognized what that even meant. So sometimes when I read the comments or when I just see where people's mindsets and mentality are in this hour, it's very troubling and it's very concerning, especially when you're carrying the cross, especially when you care about people's health and well-being more than they care about themselves, especially when you care about other people's children more than they care about themselves. I referenced LeBron James and Savannah James and Bronny James in the video yesterday. And I didn't mention the fact that when I heard about his story, I was up really late working that night. And so I didn't even go to sleep until like 4 or 5 in the morning. I turned my phone on airplane mode. And I woke up at like 11:30 or something like that. And when I woke up, I had 21 text messages. And so these are people that know me, that are, letting me know that this is happening. Everybody's kind of in, I won't, shock and awe may not be the right terminology, but that is not even including going online and seeing people who sent me this information. But for probably like 2 or 3 hours before I sat down and wrote a post and put it up on social media, my spirit was very internally disturbed. I don't know LeBron James from Adam. I don't know Savannah James. I don't know Bronny James. I used to be the biggest basketball fan. I've always loved sports, up until a certain point in my life. I used to schedule my life around like the playoffs, the finals, all of that. I was a major Kobe Bryant fan, lived and died by the Lakers, super, super, super invested in the game. Played basketball, played sports when I was in middle school and high school. So I was always athletic minded, etc. And so, but after the Donald Sterling situation with the Clippers, that's when I really started to, my interest in the game really started to wane at that point, because I saw the lack of power and the, $40 million slave element. William Rhodes, I think his name was. If you have young people that you want to get interested in reading, $40 Million Slave is an excellent book in that direction, because it's very engaging from beginning to end. And it's not just about basketball and football players. It's about the totality of the industry and how the sports entertainment industry has, really sort of taken the fiber and the fabric out of the spirit of a lot of those players. A lot of those players, especially at the height of the racial conflicts in America, ended up strung out on drugs, dealing with mental health, mental abuse issues. So there is a very important message and lesson to be understood about, how money and fame in America plays into the unraveling of a lot of these people. And so now I see LeBron online trying to, minimize the fact that his son had a heart attack. They're saying cardiac arrest. They're using that language now to make it more palatable. But an 18-year-old young man who's in the prime of his health had a heart attack. So it took me 2 to 3 hours. My energy was on 10. I was pacing, because I know what this means. And because I've watched the videos and seen the reports, and that this has happened to thousands of young people around the world. And this goes back to the sentiment of what I was talking about the emotive power of being a woman, of operating in the heart frequency, in the love frequency. That's love. For me to be feeling compassion and empathy and sensitivity for this young man. I don't know him from Adam. And this is another thing that has been extremely, very disheartening, very difficult, and extremely unfair in the past 3 years, that people that I know, people that I love, people that I follow on social media, famous people, people who will never be known, people who I don't know, just so recklessly and carelessly made these decisions with your lives and with your children's lives without even so much as thinking about the ramifications. For the first year, when people started taking the Jim Jones juice, and I know that sounds extreme, but these are extreme times. And when I was trying to talk nice and delicate and cater to the delicacy and the fragility of the situation, it fell on deaf ears. So I have to use language that is dramatic, because these are dramatic times. We say talk nice to me, but y'all don't respect nice. Y'all, whoever y'all is. So for the first year, I was having anxiety when I would hear about people that I knew that took the shot. Immediately, on the spot. People that I care about, who I wrote a book about this 8 years ago. I saw it coming. And so people just carelessly online posting pictures of themselves with "I got the shot" stickers, just willfully, brazenly ignorant. You don't care about the fact that I feel deeply and care deeply and that I'm super concerned for your well-being now. That's not an issue. When the Faucis and the government officials and the peons and peasants of the world that are in, manufactured positions of power, the celebrities, the social media commentators, the smartasses of the world, who think they know everything and really don't know anything, and are unwillingly or unknowingly, and some knowingly, maybe LeBron, implementing a very wicked and evil and satanic agenda. So I was deeply disturbed to find out that information, because I know what it means in the bigger scheme of things. Everybody's like, oh, the celebrities aren't taking it. They're not getting the real thing. We don't see what's really happening. We'll have no spiritual discernment. They are getting ready to use celebrities. Everybody that's working for them, directly or indirectly, is getting ready to get exposed by them. They want you to know. They want you to know they control LeBron James. They want you to know they control Jay-Z, Beyonce. They want you to know they control all of the NBA players, except for maybe Kyrie and a handful of others. They want you to know they control your grandmother and your aunties and your uncles, the ones who turned against you, the one who ostracized you, the ones who wouldn't let you come to the family meetings or be a part of the family anymore because you wouldn't submit to this agenda. They want you to know. And the thing about the expectation of evil and wickedness is that the check is always, there's always going to be a payment due. It's not like, okay, you want me to sacrifice somebody. You want me to, You want me to play in order to get put on? All right, cool. What do I need to do? Here's the plan. Okay, you go and do whatever is asked of you. And it's like, okay, now cool, I can ride off into the sunset. No, he's coming back for another payment next year, in the year after, in the year after. And I'm only using a year as a as a talking point. It might be next month. Look at Kanye West. Now, he told you they sacrificed his mother. He sacrificed his mother, whatever language you want to use. Ironically, right after I said it in one of my videos, I'm just saying, the next day, he goes publicly and says this, has a very powerful and serious demeanor in his aura and in his energy. He's never been the same since. But if he sacrificed or they sacrificed his mother, shouldn't that be sufficient? Isn't that enough for me to get my billions now? No. And now we can see how over time, this celebrity culture, Black celebrities, pop culture, actors, actresses, et cetera, how they've been using the control and the manipulation of these people to control the masses. Who was that who said, maybe Jordan Maxwell, if you can control one person, a celebrity, or a staple in the collective consciousness, then you can, as a byproduct, control a million. Same way that it's the inverted idea of what Abraham Hicks says: one who's connected to source is more powerful than a million who are not. That's my religion. That's my idea of personal power. So that's the God context. What's the Satan context? I'm gonna take a person who has light, a being or a beacon of light, like Jay-Z, and control him. And through controlling him, I will control millions. And why am I referencing Jay-Z? Because in 2021 and 2022, he was absolutely 100% a part of this agenda. I talked about it in the Kingdom Within web series. I talked about it which by the way is available on my website. If you go to my Instagram page and click the link in my bio, I did 2 full web series, 3-part series where I'm teaching for 5, 6, 7 hours, trying to bring attention to the mainstream. Posted the whole thing on my website for free. So Rock Nation is doing events in New York, job fairs for age 12 and up. And you have to take the Jim Jones juice in order to participate. We said nothing. We did nothing. Nobody held him accountable for that. Nobody held them accountable for that. I say nobody. I mean, obviously, I was trying to, again, insert some common sense into the conversation. So there was a comment in the chat when I was talking about you should have been supporting me, or why didn't you support me? And I saw a comment that said, we did support you. I shouldn't have to say this, but I'm going to say it anyway, because I was talking about being heavily censored for 3 years and the impact that that's actually had on my life. I had a continuity of book sales for 5 years. I had a process in the way that my marketing and advertising through social media worked, and a continuity of sales in my books for a consistent amount of time, which completely bottomed out because I was trying to bring awareness and warn the world. And so I pivoted and started my membership channel. And My real supporters and followers even immediately signed up. But those numbers compared to the people that actually watch my content, like less than 1%. So the people who have supported me, who have stood by me, because I consistently remind them that how valuable they are to me, how much they mean to me. So I in no way was I trying to undervalue those people and that support. But in terms of what the price that I paid, do I really need to be emphasizing this right now? Can you have empathy and compassion for that reality? And just to reiterate, to double down on the point, I am absolutely 1,000, 100,000% thankful and grateful for those of you guys who have stood with me, because a lot of people fell off, not just these past 3 years, but with everything I've been through over the past 15 years now doing this. Like I'm not a human being. Like I haven't given my all. Like I haven't been consistent. Like I haven't been continuously trying to raise the vibration and raise the consciousness. What I've given versus what I've gotten back in return in terms of support is laughable, respectfully. Now, I say that acknowledging that the universe emphatically has shown me and proven to me that my focus does not need to be on the support or lack thereof from humanity. It needs to be on the support and the consistency of support and love and incomparable love that I have experienced by way of what we call God, by way of what we call universe, source energy. That's why I'm here today. Because God knows if I was depending on human beings for love and for support and for edification of myself and my spirit, the way that I have continuously poured into you, I'd probably be somewhere in a corner with a needle in my arm, stressed out, strung out, feeling abused or abandoned or neglected. That includes my own family. That was from day one in my life. That's has been a continuum in my reality. So the empathy and the compassion and the sensitivity in terms of me being able to express myself without anyone feeling some type of way as if I am discrediting or devaluing the people who support me. You ask the people in my membership channel. And those who have assisted me on the path, I have been consistently grateful, thankful, etc. So thank you for continuing to support me. And I think that I should be able to express the lack of support without the people who actually support me, supporting me, feel some type of way. Because if you support me, then you will double down on the fact that the lack of support has been consistent. And what have I been trying to do? Emphasize your personal power. I don't make any of this, I might, I get fly sometimes. I talk shit, I you know what I'm saying? I can get a little slick with the words at times and, you know what I mean? Flex a little bit, but my heart is pure. My intention, again, is for your personal power to speak to that. Because if it doesn't, then what's the point? What's the point of sitting down and listening to somebody talk for 2 hours or 2.5 hours or 15 minutes if it doesn't add any value to you in your life? We got a lot of knowledge in the ethers, in the bandwidth, on social media, on YouTube, on TikTok, on Facebook, on Instagram, on Telegram. There's a lot of knowledge, data, information percolating. Not a lot of wisdom. Knowledge and wisdom are not the same. Wisdom raises people in their understanding, in their love for themselves, in their clarity. It's not a lot of wisdom in any segment of all the different ideologies and religions that I've talked about. Very, very, very little. That's why the numbers, the 6.5 billion, if the statistics that they're telling us are correct, we're so easily manipulated and fooled. And so that leaves what, 1.5 billion. And even within that 1.5 billion, I see a lot of our people, you know, we brag about the fact that we didn't take the shot, but that's just stage one. That's just level one. So we say 85% of the population is deaf, dumb, and blind. 10% of the population is are the bloodsuckers of the poor, and the 5% are the true and righteous teachers. I would say 5% of the 5% are the true and righteous teachers, focused on self-love, self-elevation, self-awareness, personal power, clarity, integrity, etc. Because that's the only real way to change any of this. While your leaders are out here promoting artificial intelligence, and you have no spiritual discernment to see that they're pointing you in a direction that is of the devil, Satan, Agent Smith, a frequency, a level of consciousness and awareness or lack thereof. You say the devil is in the details. Look at the words: artificial or synthetic, and then intelligence. What's the root word of intelligence? Intel. People who have discernment don't need me to tell them that. People who have spiritual awareness don't need me to tell them that. I pride myself on the fact that I have an audience that is conscious, eyes open, thinking, feeling, breathing, living, mindful, aware, not just because of me. I play my position. And see, that's the difference between me and a lot of the people that y'all are paying attention to on YouTube. You got people sitting in front of you bragging about how they're the only ones. I, me. As if you, within your own self, don't have the ability to think outside the box. You need them. And then they sit up and brag in 2023. What are you bragging about? The devil is turned all the way up. The suffering is at an extreme level all around us. Poverty, chaos, lack-based consciousness, victim-based consciousness. We're talking about economic crashes. We're talking about fake money. We're talking about digital lockdowns. We're talking about mass sickness and illness projected to come upon us. And I'm not saying that hoping that that is what's to come, but you know, the law of compensation is real. Or is it? No, it's not the law of compensation. It's the law of polarity. Where's my book? I don't like to not be, you know, the Kabbalion, the particular universal law that talks about, you know, once you are moved in a certain direction, once you make certain choices and decisions, unless you make choices and decisions to right those wrongs or to turn the ship in the other direction, then the results are going to follow. We're talking about spiritual and universal laws. So what are you bragging about? The smart Alex of the world, pushing you into a further consciousness of loss, LOSS, as my homie so eloquently said in a conversation that we were having. And I've been repeating it ever since. Artificial intelligence, no spiritual discernment. They're the same people that created that. I want to say consciousness, but that wouldn't be accurate. Means of control, means of digital control. They're trying to one up God. They're trying to prove that they can create the equivalent of God. And you signed right on. And then we'll turn around and pray 5 times a day. Stop playing with me. You superior NPCs. That's what I see. A superior non-playable character. Like there's managers and supervisors in the world of the non-playable characters. That's what a lot of these people represent to me. Pushing you further into a consciousness of loss, worshiping something else outside of yourself. And now it's something that doesn't even exist. At least with religion, you got a book to hold. The chosen ones choose themselves. One of the comments on the video from Anita Hall, 3340, I think it is. I don't know if this is a guy or a gal, a female or a male. ZaZa Real Women's, that's, clue number 1, women's with an S. ZaZa Real Women's supported this mess for years. Don't cry now. Live with or fight for your place. You made these men in wig, not wigs, wig, your friends. Remember I said did I say blatant ignorance, grave ignorance? Some people are so stupid, not even God can help them. This is a prime example. To play games and be so disrespectful when I spend 2.5 hours of my time sitting down, doing everything other than what you're talking about. And then the idea of, y'all supported this? Don't cry now. You made these men in wigs. I'll help you out. You clearly rode in on the slow bus. And I hope you respond. You made these men in wig your friends. They got a bed at a FEMA camp waiting for your ass. You can't even support the people that are actually supporting you. So there's a bed with your name on it. That's my response to you. Somebody in the chat room Jamal Johnson, I'm going to say your name because you asked this question in the chat room, so clearly you weren't trying to be anonymous. And you clearly follow me because that's the only reason why you could comment on the video. So I have filters set up on my videos because I have been, light attracts everything. It attracts love, it attracts wellness, it attracts good energy, it attracts well wishes and well-meaning people. It also attracts mosquitoes and dust and dirt and mites and negative energy and low vibrational being because, where else will you go but towards the light? Nobody wants to fly around in darkness. You see a candle, that's where you headed. Every dude has had their one experience with a trans, but you just can't do it twice, what we always say. And then smiley face emojis. And then this person doubled down on it in the chat room. So he was either playing and just trying to get up under my skin, or trying to start some, a different chain of conversations in the chat room, which makes you a devil coming amongst the righteous and causing confusion when we're having a serious conversation, or you actually meant that. And I'm going to respond to you the same way that I just responded to the other person. There is a FEMA camp with a bed that has your name on it. Emoji that. Respond with an emoji, a laughing emoji to that, because everything's funny till it ain't. I was up, I went to sleep last night. It takes me a couple of hours to calm the momentum when I do those type of videos. And so I fell asleep for maybe like 45 minutes, and then I woke back up and I couldn't go back to sleep. My spirit was unsettled because of, thinking about the things that I didn't say, that I meant to say. Just kind of the way that I understand the severity of the times that we're living in right now. We're in uncharted territory. And I picked up my phone and wrote some notes. And one of the things that I wrote was, the chosen ones choose themselves. So when you leave those type of comments in my chat room or on the videos, I think those of us who have spiritual discernment and are awake in this moment, is, instead of us having to react to these people, we can just keep that in mind. I also wrote contrite heart. And I want to read, because I went online and I looked up contrite heart, the Bible passage of contrite heart. Psalms 51:17. And again, if you don't do religion, I don't either. But the book is unfolding right in front of us. If you don't have the spiritual awareness to be able to discern that, because consciousness creates reality. That's what a lot of people who are religious and a lot of people in the Black community don't understand. We are grossly underrepresenting and grossly misunderstanding the bigger picture. If you think that one book is supposed to be the end all be all, when we are in a galaxy of 100 billion galaxies, I don't really know what to say. Psalms chapter 51, verses 17, my sacrifice, O God, is a broken spirit, a broken and contrite heart. You, God, will not despise. Now, despise is a deep word. Despise is a serious word. So I looked up, define contrite heart. A contrite heart or spirit is when a person's inner man or will has been broken, so they no longer run after the things they want. So I'm gonna write down broken, and we'll just add broken heart for context. And then I looked up define contrite. Contrite meaning feeling or showing sorrow or remorse for a wrong that one has done. Let me write that down. A wrong that one has done. And then another definition says feeling or expressing remorse or penitence affected by guilt. So let me write down remorse penitence, and guilt. And let me bring myself back up. Now, if you've studied the work of Neville Goddard talks about the concept of sin, S-I-N, and he defines sin as the inability to manifest our truest desires. When I heard him say that and explain that, my spirit said, yes, we can accept that. My spirit said, yes, that makes sense. Because the idea that we should be fearful of God, or that God is jealous, or that God would be punishing us for our shortcomings when we're brought into this physical reality that is immersed in suffering and chaos and insanity, just never sat right with me. Because shouldn't my creator love me? Shouldn't my creator want the best for me? So when when you look at the Christian representations of contrite, we're talking about remorse and penitence and guilt. We're talking about God, quote unquote, judging our affairs. But what if it's just really that you came here to be a healer, or you came here to be an architect, or an engineer, or a veterinarian, or a world traveler, or a writer, or a mathematician, or a scientist, or a spiritually focused being. And now you're just working a 9-to-5, barely getting by. And now you've settled in a marriage or in a relationship that is smothering you. Or now you have gotten so caught up in chasing the bag that you've lost who you really are. What if that's sin? And you are internally distressed and stressed out because you lost sight of the original desire, the righteous desire, the authentic desire. You lost sight of the fact that you can create at will, that your imagination is the ability to think something in your mind's eye and then match the love vibration and the inspiration vibration to that desire and then make it manifest. That's why I said in the video, I am invested in your well-being. That's why I said in the video that it is imperative for me, for you to be touched in a positive way by my message, in a way that is going to help free up the clutter in your mind and in your spirit. Because otherwise, what's the point? What do you love? Who do you love? How are you raising the vibration on our planet? Because if you're walking around with your fist balled up talking about the white man as the enemy, you are doing no kind of service for me or the collective, not even Black people. Because you're fighting against what you hate, which means that you're resonating the hate frequency, which means that the love frequency is continuing to diminish. A lot of Black people on this planet are about to get locked in the race-based consciousness and are not going to be able to move forward. I mentioned, just a side note, yesterday that today is the last day to sign up for one-on-one consultations. And I'm very intentionally, strategically timed it out because I have been flooded with consultations over the last 6 months. And particularly when I made this announcement, but even before I made the announcement, I would book like 5 consultations in a week. One-on-one consultations. And then, there'd be a gap in time But it was like there's these spurts where I was getting people signing up for consultations who have been knowing that I've been doing this for years. And all of the conversations were very dense, very heavy conversations. So we're supposed to talk for 60 minutes. They end up being an hour and a half most of the time, especially if it's something that's heavy, that's weighing on a person's spirit. And we're doing video conversations most of the time. So I'm transmuting the energy for a person that starts in the conversation on a 2. And by the end of the conversation in 90 minutes, they're on 9 or 10. And now I have had to transmute and take on all of that energy as an alchemist. Now I have that weight. I have that energy. You feel great. Wonderful. I did my job. But now I got to get that energy off me. Multiply that times 5 in a 1-week timeline. And then add everything else that's going on in the scope of the world, which I'm very conscientious and mindful of, not to mention the fact that I have a son in this world, which is my primary focus at all times. So when the shit starts hitting the fan, and it undoubtedly already has, I and others like me who are in the space of wisdom, I'm not claiming to be wise, but I am most definitely more focused on wisdom than I am knowledge. Because I read books like the average person watches TV. And I got to a point where I couldn't even read the books anymore because I had to turn off the books and turn off other people's minds and knowledge and turn into my own. If you haven't gotten to that stage yet where you can't read the books because now your inner being is trying to teach you, now your inner voice is trying to help you contextualize, turn the knowledge into wisdom, then the books haven't been properly serving you, scriptures and all. So the other thing I wrote in my notes at 2:31 in the morning is, what are you becoming? And what are we becoming? We as Black people in America, we as Black or melanated people around the world, we as the indigenous people around the world, and then we as the human population. If you still have a it's us against them mentality, things are going to be difficult for you moving forward, because the clenched fist is going to leave you with clenched results. We've got to be open hands, open to life, open to love, open to wisdom, open to knowledge, by whomever whichever path it comes. I can't tell you how many silly redneck white, doctors or scientists or just researchers that I've had to sit through over these past 3 years, who every now and then will say something and I'm like, yeah, okay. Great information, but you still got some devil in you. How can you be teaching to uplift humanity and to warn humanity, and you don't like people because of the color of their skin? This is the white race around the world. You are under divine judgment, as we all are, but yours is a little different. Because the activity of your ancestors is why we're here. You talk about feeding the beast. What does 400 plus years of chattel slavery do for Satan? You should repent and you should atone for the sake of your ancestors, but even more importantly, the residue and the energy of racism has to be cleared off the planet. And if you have been a purveyor of racism in your current lifetime, then you really should repent and atone. And if you haven't, then what we need from you and what I need from you is for you to raise the love vibration. You don't owe Black people anything, but you do owe yourself, and you do owe the collective consciousness, and you do owe the creator. And I'm only using the word owe to point us in a certain direction. There is no debt to be paid to God. You come here, you figure it out, you do well, you experience life at the highest, level, or you don't. Maybe you'll come back and do it all again. But I'm just saying, and I'm saying all of this in context that the race-based consciousness is over. We've already moved past that. The concept, when you understand the way the quantum realm works, consciousness creates reality. The things that we're experiencing now on this planet were materializing in the spiritual realm 10 years ago. And the things that we're experiencing right now are creating what's getting ready to come in this third dimensional reality 10 years from now. Dare I say 2? Because Satan has a timeline, and 2025 and 2030 are the marking points. You should know that. If you're paying attention, if your third eye is operating at a high capacity. Another reason why I wanted to do this follow-up video is because I'm not here to magnify the fear frequency. That's one thing that the conspiracy theory, quote unquote, community is grossly lacking in. Just coming out and spraying all this negative. They're gonna do this, they're gonna do that. They're gonna do this to us, they're gonna do that to that. No, they're gonna do that shit to you. I never own their intentions. I'll tell you what they're planning. The devil plans and Allah is the best of knowers. Or you can take Allah out and put in whatever your reference point for God is. I'm totally fine with that. Not operating in my ego, not expecting you to submit to anything that I think is right and exact. I'm here to plant seeds, and for the righteous ones amongst us to water them themselves. That's why the influencer community is doing you such a disservice, because they're creating followers. I don't want you to follow me. If you're a follower of mine, I am not doing my job. You can follow my work. I call my followers my folks. Followers meaning Instagram, YouTube, etc. Y'all are my folks. If you're following me, I'm doing a disservice. If I haven't inspired you to become a leader in your own life, to become a master of your own paradigm, then I am not on my square. What are you becoming? I'm not talking about the kind of job you have. I'm not talking about how much money you have in the bank. What are you becoming? And then what are we as a collective, as a human species, what are we becoming? Because we're the only species on the planet that has the power to become. You can become Christ-like, or you can become Judas. You can become a ruler of self, or you can become an agent of Satan. Have you ever even asked yourself the question, it's me against the world? Oh, okay, well, things are getting ready to be difficult for you. As long as me and mine are taken care of, that's all I'm concerned about. Oh, okay, well, I hope you don't need the collective to come to your aid. You could be a good man and hold that position. You can be a good woman and hold that position. And I absolutely support you in that. That's good enough. But in this timeline that we're living in, 2023, moving forward, where Satan is not on 10, on 1,000, I'm trying to reach and speak to and refuel and energize the kings and the queens among us, those of us striving for godhood and goddesshood. And I only use goddess to make sure that we include the divine feminine, because again, religion has taken the divine feminine all the way out of the context or out of context, which is a major reason why the world is in the condition that it's in today. The story of Adam and Eve. When you understand that consciousness creates reality, you understand that that story has to be symbolic. It can't be real. Because how could you blame everything on one gender? One woman. You're going to blame everything that happened in the history of our modern world on one woman? You mean to tell me her daughters couldn't change the trajectory? You mean to tell me 1,000 years after that original mistake was made that we couldn't get back on track? That doesn't even make sense. I don't care who said it. Oh, you're being arrogant and cocky. No, I'm being real. Jah 9 said, the spiritual woman is the greatest threat to the status quo. The fruit she bears, what did she say? The spiritual woman is the greatest threat to the status quo. The fruit she will bear and the power she has access to. So that's why I said, will the real women please stand up? And that's just a basic conversation. If I said, will the real goddesses please stand up? If I did a video about that, it would go over 95% of the people's head, because we're steeped in religion and we're steeped in the male-female dichotomy, and we're steeped in the notion that women are supposed to play the background, the second self of God. What does that even mean? The number 2 denotes deranking. I know where that originally comes from. No, I don't think I know better or greater than the teachers who came amongst us, but I'm here representing the true and living goddesses, not to be differentiated from God. I'm just saying. How could God have a second self? Doesn't Adam have a second self? The building blocks of humanity, of everything that we know. Doesn't Adam, A-T-O-M, which is metaphoric language for Adam, A-D-A-M, doesn't Adam have a second self? Well, it's made up of protons and electrons. Okay, does a proton have a second self? Does an electron have a second self? Now I get it, the concept of duality is really where that comes from. So there is a measure of wisdom in that statement when you have proper understanding. But the difficult thing is that the people who are pushing that narrative in 2023, that what that means, are using it as a means of deranking women to be underneath in the shadow of men. And I also recognized at some point when I was studying the teachings of the Nation of Islam, Elijah Muhammad, and, you know, Master Farad Muhammad for me was always my focal point. I was always more interested and more moved by, I won't say more, because more is not the proper context, but I was always heavily invested and intrigued by him, by the concept of what he represented and what he did. I got to a point, you know, after reading Message to the Black Man, studying the Supreme Wisdom, Theology of Time, I read all the books, all of them. I got to a point where I was like, why is everything about men? You know, this is when I'm starting to get in my spiritual understanding, when I'm, okay, I feel like I've gotten a very strong, you know, foundation here, but there's more to this story. I need to explore it. And Elijah Muhammad said, go as far as Japan to study. He never said only study my work. He said, go out in the world and study, which is what Master Farad Muhammad did according to the legend. Now, if you come on my page and start talking about all of the conspiracy elements of the Nation of Islam or Master Farad Muhammad, etc., I'm gonna block you. Because God is not the author of confusion. And I'm making a deeper point. And I'm not pointing anybody in the direction of Nation of Islam or anybody in the direction of Master Farad Muhammad or any religion for that matter. Again, my emphasis is on your personal power. So I'm explaining the trajectory of my understanding. So you can leave the preschool and the kindergarten conversation, take that to your own page. You want to expose the Nation of Islam, go join the thousands of other people who have made that their goal and intention. I'd rather spend my time exposing Bill Gates and Charles Schwab in the World Economic Forum, in the International Monetary Fund, and the demons who are in Africa forcing Ethiopians and Kenyans and paying Akon to create a digital grid lockdown on the continent. You want to expose something, your time would be better served there. I don't have a religion. I'm not acclimated or, or professed to any particular body of knowledge. I study them all. I take the best parts and I leave the rest. You read The Fall of America by Elijah Muhammad and see what's happening in the world. You might want to show a little bit of respect. I'm just saying. Same thing with the Bible. Same thing with the Quran. Take the best part and leave the rest. Tolerance is a condition of the mind of God. You have to be patient with people. So I'll be patient with you even in your ignorance, or even in your inability to settle on the best part and leave the rest. Because you want to cause chaos and confusions and say things that have been said 1,000 times before. I'm beyond that. So, but my point in bringing that up is that I got to a point where I was like, why is everything about men? You know, the whole passage in the Supreme Wisdom that talks about the brain, I think it might be in the Quran too, if I remember correctly. I haven't brushed up on my, my studies in that regard, but talking about the man's brain being larger than the woman's brain and just the whole comparison and contrast. And it was a part of me that was like, this feels divisive. This feels like you're trying to minimize my value. Because I'm not a man. And I also brought a life into the seen from the unseen. So something's not computing here. But when you study what the supreme wisdom in reference to the male and female being Allah, right? And then you contextualize that with consciousness creates reality. And then you contextualize that with Mama Earth. And then you contextualize that with the story of Asar and Aset and the role that Aset played after Asar was murdered by his brother, 2 men, her coming back and being the redeemer. And then when you study the teachings of Ptah-hotep, which is claimed to be the oldest book in the world, and how Ptah-hotep said that the pharaohs, the most important men in those times, in those kingdoms, used to go to the well and sit at the feet of the women to learn. Not priestesses, not goddesses, the regular women in the community, in the culture, is where they got their wisdom from. That's why I couldn't stop at the teachings of the Nation of Islam, because my spirit was asking for more. And then when you start studying the spiritual sciences and what the holographic universe, so to speak, the power of the mind, the power of the imagination, the power of visualization, That's why I say all of these different methodologies of learning have been important on my goal and on my path, and I respect them all. And then I came into the revelation. I had a revelation in my mind that they were men who were teaching. So of course their emphasis is going to be on men. I'm a woman. What's my emphasis? What am I adding to the equation? Why am I scared to take their wisdom and their knowledge and build and expand on it and bring a full body of righteous, balanced perspective and contextualization and put that into the collective consciousness? That's why people think I'm arrogant. Not people, but some people. You're arrogant. You don't know it all. They get that comment from men a lot, males, because they're not used to hearing a woman speak with authority. Well, welcome to the party. What do you think the age of Aquarius is about? Not about women ruling over men, but about coming back to the center. And in order to come back to the center, I, as a woman representing divine feminine consciousness, or the duality in God. See, the duality is the two sides, but it's all one whole. We are snagged on the duality concept when the concept of duality is really a full representation of the whole. So yin and yang are polarities to be mastered. You can't just master yin as a woman, because then you're imbalanced. You can't just master yang. Really, you can't master either one without the balance and the proper context of the whole. This is why we have so many men that are emotionally immature and stagnant. This is why we have so many women living in survival by any means necessary. I gotta protect, I gotta provide. Nobody chooses that. No woman chooses to be a single mother. Like a single parent raising a kid, that's a bit, who said that? Stick from Dead Prez, I think, or Wise Intelligent, or Mobb Deep. Somebody said that. You guys know. Those of y'all that like real music. I'm just saying, this shit they playing today it's beneath me. It's beneath me. You sitting back listening to females talking about legitimized prostitution, having sex for Birkin bags, concubine culture. And you're listening to that. You're digesting that. You're embracing that. The people get the leaders they deserve. When I say let the dead bury the dead, it sounds super severe. And I say that because in one breath I mean it, and then in another breath, I'm doing a follow-up video because I care. I'm all heart. What can I say? Why didn't they talk about women? Why didn't they emphasize the divine feminine? Why didn't they focus on the goddess? Because this is what I'm saying to myself, because it's up to you. They didn't say it so that you would. They didn't focus on it because the lack of focus is what inspired the thought in your mind in order for you to evolve and become that. So what are you becoming? I know what I'm becoming. Hopefully wise. Hopefully clear. So I'm not submitting to anything outside of myself, not even a man. I know that's gonna, make bells and whistles go off in your brain if you are an unevolved man. I submit to love. You submit to love. Truth be our momentum. Truth be our guide. And then we don't have to stray off the beaten path. I don't believe that women were created to submit to men. I believe that we were all created to submit to love and to submit to truth and to submit to our inner being and to submit to our righteous, authentic, God-given desires. Does that make you feel some type of way? Good. Truth does that. Oh, you're trying to change the narrative between men and women. You don't think it's broken? You don't think the concept of women submitting and the fact that you can barely get women to the minute you say that word, half your audience is going to turn off? You think that's just because women are, are disobedient or out of alignment with the rules and regulations of the creator. No, that's because women are at the core of their beings really seeking love and seeking compassion and seeking nurturing and seeking inspiration and invigoration of life. And the way that you contextualize our roles in terms of relationships is not inspiring. You come through the door talking about submission with me. Yeah, you're not the one. Great to meet you though. Now surrendering to your love, acclimating to the power that you have, listening to you and allowing you to lead in the places where you are strong, supporting you in your power, supplementing and complementing you in your power, doing the things that will help you reach your highest and best self without saying. It goes without saying. So let's just all submit to truth. Let's find a new narrative. Let's find something that everyone can agree on. Stop projecting on what I'm supposed to be and how I'm supposed to act and who I'm supposed to become. It's not working. Can't you see it's not working? Well, that's because women are not, in their right mind and they're not doing what they're supposed to do. But are you? Are you in your right mind? Are you standing in your power? Are you leading by example? Are you representing what we call God consciousness? Are you resonating and emanating love and light? No. So I think you should focus within men as a collective consciousness, because women aren't safe anywhere in the world. Collectively, talked about that in Keys to Womanhood. There's nowhere on the planet that women are considered statistically and in terms of the data, in terms of no rape, no murder, no domestic violence. Women aren't considered safe anywhere. I guess that's our fault too, right? This is why your sentiments fall on deaf ears, because you haven't even made it a point to protect women in the collective consciousness, but you want us to submit to what? The inability to protect, the inability to provide, the inability for you to stand in and walk in truth and walk in Christ consciousness. Okay, you want to read the scriptures, prove it. I'm just saying. Contrite, the thing that I underline and emphasize in terms of the contrite is the broken heart concept. Because a lot of us are walking around with broken hearts that have never been properly repaired. Men in particular. And a lot of men have had the original heartbreak was through their mothers. That's why I have mercy and grace when I interact with you, even those of you who are not in your right minds. Because I understand that the original sin was the lack of real love and connection with your mother. She failed you, and now you fail all women, including your daughters. Most people on this planet have not been properly loved. So how can you operate at your highest and best self if you've never been properly loved? I'm going to end. Let me make sure I said everything I wanted to say. I did want to emphasize, well, let me underline these 2 points. I want to read this passage from The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. I actually meant to read this yesterday to underscore the point I was making in terms of the emotional aspect of being a woman. I'm going to read this passage, and then I got a couple of other things to say, and then I'm going to let you guys go. I don't know how long I've been talking. I said I was going to sit down for 30 minutes, but that never works. On page 164, it says, why are women closer to enlightenment? Are the obstacles, this is a Q&A section, are the obstacles to enlightenment the same for a man as for a woman? Eckhart responds, yes, but the emphasis is different. Generally speaking, it is easier for a woman to feel and be in her body, so she is naturally closer to being and potentially closer to enlightenment than a man. This is why ancient cultures instinctively chose female figures or analogies to represent or describe the formless and transcendental reality. It was often seen as a womb that gives birth to everything in creation and sustains and nourishes it during its life form. Pause that for a second. This is the underlying reason for the war on women. It's not a conscientious thing. It's not something that men are actively operating on, but it is deeply embedded in the subconscious minds of the men, not all men, but men of the world as we know it today. In the Tao Te Ching, I'm saying that wrong. Tao Te Ching is the way that I usually say it, but it's really the Tao. In the Tao, one of the most ancient and profound books ever written, the Tao, which could be translated as being, is described as infinite, eternally present, the mother of the universe. Naturally, women are closer to it than men since they virtually embody the unmanifested. What is more, all creatures and all things must eventually return to the source. All things vanish into the Tao. It alone endures. Since the source is seen as female, this is represented as the light and dark sides of the archetypal feminine in psychology and mythology. The goddess or divine mother has two aspects. She gives life and she takes life. When the mind took over and humans lost touch with the reality of their divine essence, they started to think of God as a male figure. Society became male dominated and the female was subordinate to the male. I am not suggesting a return to earlier female representations of the divine. Some people now use the term goddess instead of God. They are redressing a balance between male and female that was lost a long time ago, and that is good. But it is still a representation and a concept, perhaps temporarily useful, just as a map or a signpost is temporarily useful, but more a hindrance than a help when you are ready to realize the reality beyond all concepts and images. What does remain true, however, is that the energy frequency of the mind appears to be essentially male. The mind resists, fights for control, uses, manipulates, attacks, tries to grasp and possess, and so on. This is why the traditional God is a patriarchal, controlling authority figure, an often angry man who you should live in fear of, as the Old Testament suggests. This God is a projection of the human mind. To go beyond the mind and reconnect with the deeper reality of being, very different qualities are needed: surrender, non-judgment, an openness that allows life to be instead of resisting it, the capacity to hold all things in the loving embrace of your knowing. All of these qualities are much more closely related to the female principle. Whereas mind energy is hard and rigid, being energy is soft and yielding, and yet infinitely more powerful than mind. The mind runs our civilization, whereas being is in charge of all life on our planet and beyond. Being is the very intelligence whose visible manifestation is the physical universe. Although women are potentially closer to it, men can also access it within themselves. At this time, the vast majority of men as well as women are still in the grip of the mind, identified with the thinker and the pain body. This, of course, is what prevents enlightenment and the flowering of love. As a general rule, the major obstacle for men tends to be the thinking mind, and the major obstacle for women, the pain body. Although in certain individual cases, the opposite may be true, and in others, the two factors may be equal. This is why it's important for us to deal with this male-female dichotomy. And we're only dealing with the physical realm, because like I said yesterday, my soul is not a woman. My soul is the all in all. My soul is a piece of the all in all divine consciousness, limitless potential, limitless power, limitless knowing, limitless being. So in the same way that I said in the race dichotomy with the white, black race dichotomy, even though we're moving out of that, in order for all of that thousands of years of pain and suffering and chaos that was inflicted on the darker people of the world by the white races, there has to be an emphasis and a focus on making that right. And it's already happening. You're either going to do it intentionally, or we're going to end up with the last 3 years. Look at the chaos and the craziness that we've seen in the white race. Karens, for example. You never had to suffer. You never had to deal with the difficulties of this physical reality. You never were the main focus of negative projection and negative energy. So guess what? If you don't deal with it, circumstances and conditions on the ground are going to create an environment that are going to force you to deal with it. And I can give 50 other examples just to that point. It's the same thing with the male-female dichotomy. Yes, we're moving into the age of Aquarius. Yes, we're moving back to the center where the male-female dichotomy is balanced and can be properly experienced and expressed. But in order for that to happen, you're either going to atone and make the problems and the situations that have the pain and the abuse that has been inflicted on women, you as a man and you as the collective consciousness of manhood are either going to atone and address and make those things right, or the conditions on the ground are going to force you to. Now, how many videos and how much content and conversation and podcasts are being made now talking about men being disrespected, talking about the war on men, talking about the genetic, the decreasing in the sperm countenance in men, and how, society and science is particularly focused on hurting and damaging men. But we never saw men collectively come forward and talk about the experience that women have been going through for thousands of years now. So now you want empathy and compassion from the women that you've been ignoring all this time. So you either deal with the situations on the ground, or the situation is going to force you to do it. That's just the isness of life. The universe is no respecter of persons. The universal laws are playing themselves out, and it is what it is. You pick which side you're on based on how you carry yourself, based on how you think, based on your level of consciousness and awareness. It just is what it is. So like I said, like I always say, a man who refused to learn from a woman is a fool. You waiting on a man to come back and bring you proper perspective and clarity. And what if God sent a woman? Sends women. What then? Are you going to reject the messenger? What if it was your mother? What if it is your mother? What if it's the women at the well, and you a baller, and you got money, and you got clout, and you got fame, but it's the women at the well that you're supposed to go and sit under and get your wisdom from? What then? I think LeBron could have used the woman at the well personally, his wife too. It's just the isness of, you know what I mean? I've been through a very specific experience in my life. I grew up without a mother. my whole entire life. I grew up as a mixed race child in a 1000% Black family, dark-skinned Black family, a family that wasn't capable of cultivating and nurturing who I was to become. So while I identify with the story of Master Fard Muhammad, the concept of the comer by night, the concept of being created in a certain fashion to bring justice to both people, the concept of being shaped and molded in the image of something that's righteous and powerful, it is in spite of the circumstances of the world. Yeah, I can relate. And he was shaped and fashioned by his father, and his mother played a very limited role in terms of him coming. She was, she didn't raise him. His father did. The spiritual sciences did. The wisdom of the universe did. Don't focus on the actual story. Focus on the allegory of what I'm saying. Don't get snagged on something that you're in disagreement with. Listen to the wisdom that's coming from my heart. Because I don't worship Master Fard Muhammad or any man. The last thing I want to say, the last thing that I wrote in my notes, 2 words: be bold. Be bold. They're playing in the big leagues. They're swinging for the fences. You talk about, you might have an opponent. If you play basketball or you are competitive, or in whatever your particular field of work or endeavor, you might have a competitive spirit. Most of us do, especially if you are striving to be great. Imagine challenging the universe. Imagine creating space-based weapons because you think you're going to defeat God. Imagine trying to take over the ecological system of the planet. Yeah, we know produce and grapes and lettuce and potatoes and beans and coffee, and we know all these things grow naturally, but we're going to stop the natural process and create fake seeds. So you got to come and buy your seeds from us instead of just being able to put a seed in the ground and grow a tree. I mean, the audacity of it all. We're going to create a digital space that doesn't even exist in 3rd dimensional reality and lock you in it so we can control you. We're going to create social media platforms so we can use influencers and celebrities and political pundits and talking heads to implant goals and aspirations or lack thereof in your mind. Because really, you can think anything and bring it into reality. But forget all that. We want you to focus on a 9 to 5 and paying bills. When you have limitless, endless potential, we're going to keep you living check to check. We're going to change the monetary system from a system that's already failed and not working to a new system that's backed by nothing, has no natural resources. And by the way, gold-backed digital currency, if you know who Boyd Anderson is, he's been saying for a long time now that China's going to implement a gold-backed digital currency, and that's going to be the linchpin that's going to make people accept digital currency, because right now it's not backed by anything. They've injected trillions of dollars into the global economy that isn't backed by anything. And I was going to say you guys, but let me channel my language. I wanted to do a different type of frequency in this video. Many people bought into it hook, line, and sink. Why? Because it fattened their pockets. And okay, we all out here, trying to figure it out, trying to make money and live, but you didn't stop to look at the bigger picture. Same thing with artificial intelligence. You people making all these money by selling artificial intelligence. They have no clue that they are selling the infrastructure of Satan's world. Blockchain is the throne. Yeah, it's safe because blockchain is going to make sure that everything is right and exact. Every transaction is going to be recorded. Nothing's going to be able to be, falsified. It's going to keep us from being limited to the global currencies and the way that the money market has already been set up. Well, the answer is in the question. Yeah, everything will be digitized. All of your moves will be watched. All of your spending will be watched. And if you're not in compliance, we're going to keep you from being able to do business with Delta Airlines, American Airlines, Whole Foods Market, Trader Joe's. What do those zeros in your account mean then? This is why the divine feminine perspective is important, because we're looking at the big picture, the full picture. My last thing I want to say, women, ladies, queens, good women, goddesses, the world needs direction. The world needs guidance. The world needs balance. The world needs clarity. The world needs love. ZaZaAli.com is my website. I'm going to post the link in the description if you're interested in signing up for a consultation. I will post the link to save $25 just to, just for a plug. But today is July 31st. After today, maybe after tomorrow, just because I didn't put the description in the video yesterday, I totally forgot because I was just on one. I'm going to post the link and maybe leave that up today and tomorrow. But after that, I am going to be creating programs and things where people can work with me in a longer term capacity. But in terms of like just the one, consultation, one-on-one consultation, I'm not going to be doing that anymore, only for people that are in my membership channel. And I'll clue you guys in on that a little bit later. But in terms of like publicly reaching out to me, I want to do a consultation. I'm dealing with something. I need some advice, some perspective. I've come to the end of that part of my work. ZaZaAli.com is my website. info@ZaZaAli.com is my email address. I appreciate you guys' time and attention. Peace and love.